Hello and welcome to the Park Bench. I am your host, Scott Bush, and I have a perfumed scented love letter. Ooh, it's really nice. Dear Scott, you don't know me, but I like to watch you all the time. And I love the Park Bench. I love you. And, I have to tell you, my mail bag is flooded with these things. But and there's some other things on here I really can't read, but or I shouldn't read to you. But anyway, we're not here to talk about my love letters today to the show. We're here to talk about real estate love letters. And my guest today is Tom Weber, and Tom Weber is a vice president at First Weber Realtors. And First Weber's got a good handle, I believe, on how they handle talking with buyers and sellers and about the use of love letters, as do many of our companies as well. I was talking with Casey Klickner at Shore West, and they have a similar sort of process. But the reason we're talking about love letters, they were very popular. Then they kind of fell off the radar a little bit, but now they're coming back a little bit. We had a couple strategic planning sessions where it came up twice when we talked a little bit about fair housing, about how love letters were being encouraged by some agents. And I don't think it's the best practice just because of the fair housing landmines that they might present. So, Tom, let's talk a little bit about maybe some of the coaching you provide agents and some of those pitfalls and what you do.
Yeah, so we went and got attorney drafted language early on, actually ahead of NAR, looking at this. We have a corporate counsel that's very, very sensitive to this issue, and he spotted it right away and said, how are we ever going to navigate the landmines? And so we started looking at what some of the love letters were coming in. We said, yeah, absolutely, we got to do something.
Right.
So we actually started a proactive discussion with sellers. I know a lot of companies do that, where we ask them very specific questions about how they'd like to handle the situation of love letters. But we do take a little time to explain to them there are pitfalls. And, it could engage some of the conscious or unconscious biases they may have. It may lead to outright an accusation of discrimination, or at least the appearance of it, and how we want to avoid that at literally all costs.
And there can be biases, but also proactive biases, which could also be detrimental as well.
Yeah, we've had a number of instances. I used to be out in the field quite a bit, and through my sphere I do a few every now and then just to keep me hands in the business and understanding issues. And one client I had this discussion with, it was really interesting. We talked about the listing. We said, no, we don't want to present any love letters. If we receive them, you will always have the right to take a look at them, but we'll prefer to look at them after you've made a decision on which offer you're going to work with. And for this lady, it was very interesting to me. She identifies as someone who's very much a protected class. And she received 8 offers on her property. And she's the only client that I know of personally that after she made a decision on which offer to work with, she has to see not only the love letter that was provided by that purchaser, but all of the love letters we received. And it was a really interesting sort of social experiment. She works in a job where discrimination is a high visible priority issue for her. She really views herself as someone who is very inclusive. And I'll just cut to the chase. We got all done. She read the letter of the people that were getting the home. She loved it. She thought that was fabulous. She asked to read all the rest. One of the letters, most of the letters contain pictures, believe it or not, Scott. So, those themselves added to the potential for discrimination right then and there. But one of them identified themselves as the same protected class as she was.
Okay.
And at that very moment, she lost all color in her face. And she said to me, oh my gosh, I would have taken their offer. It would have netted me less money. It includes more risk. I would have assumed they were being discriminated against by others, and I would have taken their offer.
And that would have been the proactive bias I was talking about that we often don't really see, but that certainly is a proactive bias like I was referring to.
Exactly. And the interesting thing to me was over the next 5 years, I saw her twice. out shopping at a large store a lot of people go to on a Saturday afternoon, very crowded, lots of people around. The first time was 3 years later, and she was so taken aback by the fact that she realized she would have made a choice based on bias.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 years later, she's chatting with a friend, and she sees me, invites me over, and she actually outs herself to her friend. She said, "Do you think I'm a discriminatory person?" And her friend said, "Absolutely not."
No, quite the opposite.
Yeah.
And
then she went on to tell the story of that I just shared with you, and her friend was shocked. And to this day, it's now probably 8 years later, and I don't have a year pass that in our conversations she doesn't say, "I still can't believe I would have done that. I just can't believe it." So I think, those letters, although we all think that we have the best intentions in mind, there are just so many things that could cause discrimination. And, thinking about today, because my area of expertise isn't all the counties that your members serve, I did a little Google search, and I only trust AI so far, but I think it gives me some consistency. Besides the big 8, that are the federal protected classes, if you add in what's at the county level, and I wrote myself a little note here so I don't screw this up, Waukesha has 11 protected classes, it's identifying. But in Washington, it's 12. And when we got to Racine, it was up to 14. By the way, the state of Wisconsin is 13. And
I think Dane County has the record, right?
Yeah, Ozarki's 17, Milwaukee's 20, and of course Dane County is 22.
Yeah.
But I guess the point I wanted to make, in at least bringing that up, is it's kind of like regulations for a fire escape on a bedroom, on a home. That varies literally by municipality.
Sure.
There's nothing a realtor can do to have an absolute answer but talk to the municipality. Depending on which county you're operating in, anything could be bringing a lot of people into a protected class you don't understand. Some of them that come to mind that caught my eye, and one I think catches everybody almost immediately. If you have a political belief, you're a protected class in some of these counties. Your appearance
that's right.
protects you.
That's interesting, right?
And so it's just, you start looking through all of them, and you don't have to go through more than 2 or 3, and you can think, I've probably protected almost every person I know. So when we think protected classes, it's not what I think most agents go to and think immediately. It's not all about, our ethnicity or
It's
our
not just
sex
black and white. It's,
or age.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
right.
so much more. And so those letters, I've yet to find one that I can't look through and go, there it is.
Yeah.
And unfortunately sometimes you can do that 10 times in one letter.
Familial status is often talked about in love letters.
Yep.
Religion is often talked about. I'd love this house to see on Christmas morning, my kids running down to the tree in front of the fireplace,
Yeah. Oh, it's so convenient near my mosque.
Right,
all of those
right.
things.
All of those things, and that may or may not influence a seller's decision.
Yeah.
So, words of wisdom for listing brokers when they take a listing, to have a discussion with sellers about love letters, because certainly I think it's REB 2412. Basically says that you have to submit everything with the offer. If the love letter is part of the offer, especially photographs gets a little dicey, but the trick here is, or the good practice, I should say, is what we are going to coach these sellers. What are the precautions we're going to talk to them about? Can you share any of that?
Yeah, it's all about giving them choices. And, I want to be really careful. We're not here to give anybody legal advice.
Right.
As I mentioned, we went to our general counsel and really said, the target is not to avoid sharing some part of the offer, but to get the seller's permission to maybe delay that part of it so that we can clearly say a decision was made not on anything contained in that letter. When I said photos, these photos were embedded into it. You could not print the letter without getting the photo.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
so it
I've
was
seen samples of them.
Yeah. So that's where we just really wanted to focus on, you know, we're not avoiding it. We want to share it by all means if you want to see it. It's an interesting thing to me because after you bring up the idea of possible discrimination or the appearance,
Yes.
many of those sellers, my agents are reporting back, say, don't even show me a letter. I don't even want to know.
And some sellers are taking that. Some sellers are also taking that position.
Yeah, they're voluntarily
Yeah,
after we just
no,
sort of
I don't
said,
need
hey,
to see all this. You know.
Yep.
Right.
they're like, that's great. You know, maybe I'll meet them at closing.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. We made our decision on economics and on
Right.
risk
Right.
of the offer, and we don't need to worry about the rest of it. So
Yeah, and I would encourage members that, you know, you have enough to worry about, enough to be concerned about. Don't encourage love letters.
no, yeah.
And that's, I want to get that message across. That's not a good idea to encourage that, because a couple of years ago, I know a lot of members were encouraging love letters.
Right.
You know, it might be a good idea to, you know, you have a really cute family, you know, and you know, take a picture and just tell them how much you love the home. Yeah, not a good practice.
No, not at all. And as a matter of fact, some of the language we brought into our disclosures to the seller, we actually talk about that and say, you know, on our buyer agencies, the agent is not here to help you write one of these letters, infer you should write one of these letters. As a matter of fact, we recommend against it.
Excellent, yeah. So, you know, in the end, it's not me, it's you. You know, those are the kind of letters. You know.
Well, I want to get some of your letters. I got to do compliance and policy. My mailbox doesn't look anything like that.
Yeah, my mailbag is just filled with these. You know, with these. So, any parting words, Tom? I appreciate you. You drove all the way from Madison today to be with us, to share your expertise and your wisdom, to help us.
I appreciate the opportunity, man. It's, to me, I'm passionate about this from the beginning, that this was just not a great practice, and whatever we can do to help encourage our realtors to be operating in a safer way. You know, I think back, there's lots of things, you know, I've been doing this now since '88. You know, we used to give financing letters right from the lender over to the seller and satisfy somebody's financing, and they didn't even see the terms of what the lender's final terms were. You know, we'd never do that now. I can tell you, I did that probably for 15 years at the beginning of my career. So we're always evolving and trying to look for ways to be better. And this is just another case.
I love to do whatever I can to protect our members, and I've been here since 1985, and I learned a long time ago, I think it was Robert Frost. I don't expect any to remember. Some of you out there might remember Bob Frost, but he used to say a lawsuit avoided is a lawsuit won. So anything you could do to avoid that extra liability, try to stay away from the love letters.
Absolutely. Great advice.
Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate you coming to the park today.
You. Appreciate it. This is really cool. I hope to get my own park bench one of these days. I'm probably about 10 years away, though.
Oh, I'll be a guest.
All right.
Say bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.